So welcome, everybody. It's nice to see you again. Thank you all for coming. As you know, this session is being recorded, but before sharing the recording, we will seek consent from anyone who features in the recording, as we normally do. Could you please briefly introduce yourself by writing your name in the chat, your name and where you are connecting from? This is the second session of this new series of the Biodiversity and Livelihood Collective. And the aim of these sessions is to connect the GEN members facing similar challenges and questions. Today, we're going to talk about the challenges of establishing and maintaining community seed banks. We have three special guests today: Paula Fuentealba Urzúa from Chile, Ascarsho Servashev from Tajikistan, and Omar Sadani Hassani from Morocco. These three guests represent three teams that are leading and innovating in the field of community seed banks and will be sharing their experiences, learnings, and questions with each other and with us. Each speaker will have 10 minutes to present. After the speaker's presentation, we will open a dialogue between the speakers, and then we will be able to open the questions and answer round. So I would like to introduce our first speaker, Omar Sadani Hassani. Omar joined the GDF Morocco Biodiversity and Livelihood Association in 2019 as field agronomist researcher. He is responsible for conducting research and capacity building activities related to agroecology in the High Atlas Cultural Landscape Program. Omar holds a PhD in biotechnology and environmental sciences. His previous experiences have enabled him to acquire knowledge on biodiversity conservation, permaculture, and capacity building. So now, Omar, I hand it over to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. So I'll share my presentation first. Can you see my screen?
Yes, perfect.
Can you see my... Okay. Thank you, Marcus. As I said, I'm Omar. As you said, I'm Omar Sadani Hassani. I'm working with Moroccan Biodiversity and Livelihood Association as a field agronomist researcher and lead of agroecology program. Today, I present the community seed banks in the Moroccan High Atlas, created by GDF in collaboration and MBLA. Well, so everyone know who are GDF, Global Diversity Foundation. Now, who are Moroccan Biodiversity and Livelihood Association? So we are a Moroccan association. Our aim mission is to support the Moroccan High Atlas in biodiversity conservation, as well as improving livelihoods of local communities in this big area. Well, on this area, we are working across 5 big pillars: biodiversity conservation, as well as cultural practices, capacity buildings, agrobiodiversity and agroecology, and finally, enhancing community livelihoods. Now, about community seed banks. The first one were created in 2014 in collaboration with the Global Diversity Foundation in Gdel, and we have 3 other community seed banks in the High Atlas. So as I said, all those community seed banks are implemented in the High Atlas. The total number of accessions is more than 500 accessions, including 200, more than 270 cultivated crops. Wow. So the aim goals of those seed banks is, first of all, to preserve for sure local seeds, provide seeds to local communities, to introduce the local varieties or seeds, to help on preserving varieties suited to the area, whether native varieties or new varieties from selection programs that we are doing in other activities in our association. Well, we use community seed banks also to train local communities on different stages of seeds conservation, going from collecting seeds to production, collection, and preservation or conservation. Well, for that we are using some facilities, refrigerators for conservation at 4 degrees, so for medium conservation, silica gel freezers for cold attack to avoid pests before introducing new seeds on our seed banks, and also other consumables, classic ones. In the staff list is we have 2 field agronomist researchers who are working on those management of those seed banks. Also, we have a total of 7 community researchers that are working on each community seed bank. Those community researchers are from the community, members of the community that can work on seed banks and can manage different activities on those seed banks. Well, we have also one ethnobotanist expert, Dr. Rashid Isbad Ahmed, because we have the community seed banks and also local herbarium. Also, one senior botanist researcher, Professor Ahmou from Qadaiyad University. Well, the main activities on our seed banks is seed collection, wild and domesticated plants, seed cleaning and examination to avoid the introduction of pests, and as I said before, a medium-term storage or conservation. Well, data management or documentation system. So we choose an easiest tool that everyone can use, especially local community researchers. So we choose Excel file and it works perfectly. We have different information about seed collected and conserved in our community seed banks. Well, but on behalf of these tables, we created an e-catalog or a community biodiversity register. Why? For farmers, for local communities, and catalog that is easy and everyone can use with different information going from the name of the species or the variety, the agronomic characteristic of this seeds, a morphological description, different step before sowing and after sowing, some possible crop rotation, also information about possible pests and disease and how to manage it, companion plants, etc. So this is just a tool for local communities and farmers that is very simple in English and also in Arabic. And we are thinking about doing translation on local language, which is Tamazight. Well, future activities and strategies. We are working now on improving the actual community seed banks. We are also establishing an exchange seed program of local crop varieties to maintain and to create more activities and to implement more local communities on those community seed banks. Challenges and needs. So the biggest one is how to integrate more local communities into those seed banks activities. We have also the absence of seed health units, which can be very dramatic if we have a pest or something that can touch our seeds. Other challenges, how to maintain community seed banks and ensure their long-term sustainability, how to encourage local farmers to supply seed banks with traditional seeds varieties, and the most common one for all NGOs, how to release funds for those community seed banks. And thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Omar. That was very interesting. Before I've got some questions, but before I don't want to start now because we want to have Ascario's presentation first, and then we will open the floor for discussion. Thank you, Omar. Now I will introduce Ascario. Ascario holds a degree in biology and environmental sciences, has a Master of Science in Land Management and Land Tenure for Urban and Rural Development. He has a vast experience in the area of agriculture, natural resource management, and environmental and social management in the Central Asian countries and Afghanistan. Ascario is co-founder and served as chairman of the public organization Environmental Consultancy since its establishment in 2014. At the moment, he is a board member of Environmental Consultancy, where he is involved in conducting different studies, including biodiversity assessment and management plan, as well as conducting environmental and social assessments. So please, Ascario, now the floor is yours.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, colleagues, and thanks to Marcus for the great introduction. So I assume there is no need now to present the first slides due to a shortage of time. But yeah, the purpose for this presentation, I would like to share like a broader experience of our public organization, environmental consultancy, in terms of like overall goal of biodiversity conservation, to contribute also to seed conservation through establishment of community seed banks. And we are trying to use a more integrated approach in order to somehow to serve also sustainability and maintenance of community-based these seed banks as like separate institutions, which are also partners to us at a like a higher level to share their interest and share their interest and also. So I have designed my presentation in a way that just to give you an overall picture of tools, approach, and instruments which are also led our organization towards like establishment of these community seed banks and more focus on conservation of seeds at community level. And in this context, I want to present the background to the project target area, so you have so that you have a basic understanding of where we work and which kind of conditions. I want to briefly talk about one of our approach we call mobile learning circle. I want also to briefly introduce you to the biocultural heritage territory, which is called now Wheat Park, and facilitated and established with the support of our organizations and also the community seed banks, which have been been established as a result of these two activities, and the mountain seed banks, which is now serving as an association of community seed banks at a high level to lobby these like community level entities at the national level, and at the conclusion, like overall approach towards this, like our work. So we mainly working in the eastern part of Tajikistan. It's called Pamir Mountains, and at the moment we are focusing on one of the diverse like area in terms of cereals and beans, which is called Bartang Valley, and it's located like from 1.5 to 4,000 meters above sea level, at a length of area a bit more than like 200 kilometers along the Bartang River, which is coming like from natural made lake called Sares Lake. And the vegetation period, which is specific also to this area, is very short due to the harsh climatic conditions. And the main vegetation range is plants and all other is from 1,800 to 3,200 meters. And yeah, that's where also like wheat and other cereals grow at the altitude of 3,000 meters above sea level. Why we have chosen this area? Because according to the previous like data, one of the Russian scientists, which is known or in the area of like seed conservation, I suppose many biologists and people who are involved in seed conservation, Nikolai Ivanovich Vavilov, who has visited this area like 100 years ago, 1916, and he found like 67 varieties of wheat in specifically in this area. And thus he established that these mountains, Badakhshan, is a center of origin and diversity of soft wheat, which includes also Bartang Valley, which we are focusing our work and like activities within our organizations. Our mobile learning, or we call it retracing Vavilev's steps, and first time we have established it in 2017. It's like to look at the biodiversity patterns in terms of change in 100 years since the first visits of Vavilov in 1916. And under this, it's not like a focus on scientific words. It brought together professionals from interdisciplinary like fields, including science, from like environmental science, biology, also humanities, as well as stewards of traditional practices and community members to come together and conduct this mobile learning circle and share experience about like and mainly during these learnings we have found and like attested the recognition of importance of use and preservation of traditional crops by local people along these high altitudes, And under this high altitude initiative, agriculture and diversity of agriculture group was investigated and observed during this mobile learning circle. Later, I will explain how why which one is served kind of like approach, tools, or instrument within like our work towards establishment of community seed bank establishment. Another activities which we are focusing in our work is towards like establishing of the biocultural heritage territory within our targeted area, Bartang Valley, and name it Wheat Park. And why this specifically Wheat Park? Because after Vavilov, when he was emphasized the importance of there in terms of diversity of cereals mainly and beans or general biodiversity, another Tajik Pamir expedition have been organized in 1928 and found in these areas 7 new varieties of unilingual and 7 varieties of dwarf wheat, which have been like new at that time to the science. And following this, after Vavilov, his students also were sent to work in the Pamirs and to overall Central Asian countries, which like divided this area into 14 growing zones of the soft wheats, where like around 273 varieties of wheat are growing, and he found out, and out of these 273, 151 are found in the Badakhshan and in Bartang Valley, which belongs to several belong to 7 species. And in 100 years' time, with conducting another mobile learning circle jointly with all these stakeholders we were facilitated to involve, we've still found that this kind of varieties is still practiced and cultivated by local, like traditional stewards or local farmers. And then after conducting this mobile learning circle, our organization explored how important the diversity of genetic resource in these areas, especially in the Bartang valleys, which have led specifically to the needs of establishment of these community seed banks. And then the general approach has been taken to support communities in terms of establishing special place, because there was a threat and risk in terms of like in the future to lose this diversity due to this globalization and like climate change also Therefore, we have been established, as reported, around 12 communities, and that general approach was taken to support with the small infrastructure in a safe place with all other like facilities that my colleagues just listed them within these seed banks, and make them able to preserve their community-based like seeds in a more strategic way. Further, in order to support this community adaptation to climate change and also conserving this biodiversity through establishment of mountain seed bank was established. This is where also the GDF seed fund had been like helped to establish or kind of like a association of these community seed banks to back up the seeds which are existing at the community level, and which also can be like backed up at a more like formal institutions, which also in terms of like learning and exchange can help like during this mobile learning for others like stakeholders to have access to these and to learn and to exchange. Yeah, as said, this institutional platform for local communities, it is now more in a formal way to lobby their interest as a registered institute, and it will also serve to build the constructive interactions among these local community seed banks representatives, and also facilitate other stakeholders in this process, like the governments, the research institutes that also could help to recognize the shared role of community members in the conservation of their seeds. And it also, yeah, one of the main purpose of this, it's also facilitated to or contributed to the promotion of local youth as a stewards to get interest in conservation of seeds, generally in biodiversity and in this thematic area. And in conclusion, as I said, each of these activities which we were focusing somehow within our overall framework or our overall approach served as a tools approach or as an instrument to support the sustainability and maintenance of these community seed banks, which we aim like to contribute to overall seed conservation and adaptation to climate change. And the first one, we were talking about mobile learning circle and also retracing Vavilo steps. This was like an approach to facilitate joint collaboration of all parties. And like I said, researchers from different institutes, community members, representative of the governments, and also stewards of traditional practice to share lessons learned and also exchange seeds from one community to another community. And our biocultural heritage territory or wheat park serving as an instrument, or it's as a location which suits the requirements of the diversity of genetic resource and their linkages to the human cultures. And our community seed banks, these are now our small institute at a community level to facilitate the adaptation and conservation of traditional genetic resource or traditional seeds. And the mountain seed bank, which we are aiming to establish as an institute, serves as a platform for local communities to lobby their interest, to build like constructive interactions among different stakeholders via recognition of the shared role that different stakeholders having in this like initiative. That's like brief about our role in terms of like supporting or involving communities also in our initiative in seed conservation. And I have a short film of 1 minute. If still there is time, I can also, if you allow, I play also this one, which is general representing like the areas and yeah. Yeah, thank you very much. That's a brief about our initiative. And the last phrase which was presented, it was like it's translated like for the sake of one seal. Yeah, seal, yeah, which was sound by Vavilov after like he lost most of his like gatherings in the area due to the difficult terrains. And only several like wheat seals have been left with them. And he said that it's worth like because of this also come to the Pamirs and to get like introduced to the diversity of like seeds and all like biological diversity. Thank you very much. I'm glad to answer any question you want.
Thank you very much.
To present my colleagues, he was just sitting next to me, and he's like currently, a chairman of our public organization, and also involved in all of these things. And
Nice to see you.
Joining me in this presentation.
Nice to meet
Any
you
question,
too.
also welcome.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you too. So now we guess that Omar and Ascarsio and the teams they represent, you have some challenges and some problems in common, because you are doing similar things in different territories with different cultures. So maybe we can now first open the floor, give the opportunity to Ascarsio and Omar if they have questions regarding what the other one is doing. If you have any kind of comments, of inquire, now is the moment for you.
You go ahead, and Omer first. You want, otherwise you.
Thank you for your presentation, Ascarsio. I see that we have the same your activities as like different platforms. Like I saw mountain seed bank, community seed bank. So you divided every sections differently. But I have more questions about the biocultural heritage territories. But you focused only on wheat park. You focused only on wheat, not only on cereals, not on the other crops or the other wild species.
Well, the area we are representing it's like more focused on wheats, but also cereals. But due to diversity of the wheats, that's why we call like potato park. Yeah, we called it wheat park as an analog or as a same. But there is also different varieties of cereals and beans also representing there. Okay. But we were thinking, you are right, we were thinking very long about a cereals park, but then at the end we thought that wheat parks sounds more like appropriate, because if I go back to the also slides on this biocultural heritage to the wheat park, I was focusing also mainly on the diversity of the wheats in this area, but the same diversity also relates to other varieties, other part like other cereals, but I thought it's too technical would be to present all these diversities here. Thank you. Yeah, you're correct.
If someone have any question,
please.
Yeah, Omer, also thank you very much. Yes, it was very interesting to learn from your experience, but mostly my concern was about like this the role of like facilitation. Who is playing the facilitation role in terms of like exchange and collecting? Is it done by the community members? Is there any responsible, or is it like your organization taking lead, kind of like the permanent staff which are
Actually, we have, as I said, we have a permanent staff on the seed banks. We have community researchers. We hire someone from the community. In that way, it facilitates different things. We have the trust of the communities, and the communication got easier with local farmers or local communities. That's the first point. In each site, we have different sites on the High Atlas because it's a very big area. And in each site, we have at least 2 community researchers. So we have all the time one of those community researchers permanently in doing that in parallel of our community seed banks. We have also community nurseries, and so those community researchers are working on those nurseries, and as they said, they are from the communities and they are from the area, so they are all the time on site. And for the supervision, we are supervising many activities with them.
Thank you for clearance. One more question, which always concerns me. Maybe it's not true for that part of the world, but you know, in our areas, seems like the Soviet Union, it was a bit like bureaucratic in terms of like allowing community uninformally to collect seeds or be involved in. That's always was the role of the like government specialized institute, yeah. And these practices still exist. And when, for example, you establish these community seed banks and infrastructure, and somebody asks, like from officials, what is it about? And people say it's about collecting seeds and preserving. There might be a concern also from their side. How does it works in your and that's also your realize the concern why we differentiated like community seed banks, and then we call them mountain, then we established auto mountain seed banks. That's kind of also more formal institutes because of this like issue we have established. It's lucky one. There's many community seed banks, you don't deal with like registration and all this kind of legal entity being involved with each one of them. But how it works in like in your context, maybe it's just
well, in Morocco, we are not allowed to have a formal one because we have only community seed banks. But the formal one is managed by INAGA, the National Institute of Agricultural Research. So they have one focal point. They have a national seed bank following the FAO restrictions, and they have a local focal point with FAO. So as I said, for the formal things, we have community seed banks for informal things, but for official, in the official way, we are not allowed to do it directly by ourselves. So it needs to be with community. You need to be in participatory approach to prove that it's a community seed bank, and not a seed bank that can give some problems for like introducing new seeds or not local seeds from other sides.
Thank you. And you also mentioned community-based nurseries. Is it something different from the seed banks, or it's the same like part of?
It's the local nurseries where, because as I said, we are working across a lot of activities and a lot of areas. including plant conservation. And the local nurseries are used to do production of local seeds. And we are doing many activities through those local nurseries, like building on those nurseries. Are also every year plant distribution, especially plants that can be collected from the mountains. And so in this of using or collecting those plants from the mountains directly by local communities, we're asking them to come to the local nurseries, the local community nursery, and they can have plants for free. In that way, we are conserving the wild area also indirectly. We have many activities on that. We are also using some parcels of those nurseries for multiplication of seeds to supply our community seed banks. That's it.
Yeah.
Very interesting exchange. If you don't have any other questions, maybe we can open the floor now for if someone here participating has questions, comments, or wants to share his or her view about this, you are welcome to do it now.
Abigail has a question in the chat, Marcos.
In the chat, she says, thanks for sharing. My question is for both. How have you seen the openness of local farmers to continue using native seeds instead of improved seeds?
I may start. Yeah, that's a good question, and it's always was a concern, and there was also a big discussion on this in our learnings and like mobile learnings and experience sharing we organized. And the good thing is that there is a big lesson learned for my country, because after the collapse of the Soviet Union, when the land management structure have been collapsed, kolkhozes, sovkhozes were also the system of kolkhozes and sovkhozes, which are collective farms managed by the government, collapsed, and land was distributed to the households. And then humanitarian organizations came in and fled the hybrid and what you call also, instead of improved seeds, into the communities. And in some years, well, communities were happy because subsidized seeds, good quality, a lot of harvest. But when slowly they started phased out to renew these seeds, and then communities started facing these issues in terms of seed qualities. And there is automatically or by nature would force them to get back to their traditional or to their local seeds, which are more let's say stable to the or adapted to the disease, to the climatic, because you have notes from my presentation that the agriculture practice happening above 2,000 meter above sea level, and also sometimes 3,000 meter, which is agriculture risk zones. And slowly, and at the moment, well, there is some who are still favor good quality seeds if it's freely accessed, but in terms of sustainability now, many, especially those stewards and all the people which you have seen from the photos, maybe you have notes, or from the videos, are happy, very happy about to get back to their traditional seeds, and also, yeah, and they are very also excited about comparing maybe they are used to the taste and the way they are easy to collect and green and stuff like this in their conditions. And that's true. But of course, there are still communities, maybe young farmers who are just started, also favored to use the improved seeds and have high yield and stuff.
To add something else, the biggest challenge on this question is to gain or to have the trust of local farmers or local communities, and you need to build that in medium and long term by doing different activities, especially with farmers, and capacity buildings. In our case, we had a farmer feed school program that we did many capacity buildings about agroecology, agroecological practices adapted to the area, adapted to the condition and economic condition also of local farmers. And all of those activities makes those farmers aware about all of those challenges step by step. And finally, we started working with some selected farmers on good agroecological practices, including using local and traditional crops or seeds. So you need to work on it step by step. You can't come and tell to farmer, talk to farmer to say you need to avoid this variety or this species. It's not local. So you need to work with them step by step. In that case, they can see the results, and they start to ask some questions about some pests, for example, some problems with their crops, and in that way you can get them aware about this, but you can do it directly or in a very short time.
Thank you. And thank you, Abigail, for your question.
Gary is rising his hand.
Gary, please.
Thank you. And thank you, Marcos, for this wonderful new series of biodiversity and livelihoods events. Enjoying this wonderful today. Everything that I love, and really congratulations, both Omar and to Skarsho and his colleague for the work that you're doing. I think this is extremely valuable. Wonderful to have this dialogue. And I have a question for Skarsho that Omar could address as well. And I have a question for Omar that Skarsho could address partly. And then I have a question for both of you. So if I get 3 questions, I'll be happy. First question, let's go back to the beginning of Biodiversity and Livelihoods group. We were working on Darwin Initiative proposals. And of course, Skarsho, you are interested in applying for a Darwin, and it would be about seed banking and things like this. We had talked about getting in touch with the Royal Botanic Gardens queue, as it was beneficial to have a colleague or an institutional partner in the UK for that particular opportunity. And I'm putting in the chat here the 4 people that responded. We're all kind of fine. You can click on those different people. These are colleagues that are involved with the Millennium Seed Bank, and they're responsible for working with people like, seed banking just around the world. So my question to you, Skarsho, do you think you would like to pursue that relationship? And then maybe the question to both of you and the risks of working with an institution like Royal Botanic Garden Kew and the Millennium Seed Bank.
Well, yeah, that's as we aimed, Gary, at that time. But as you already aware that I was also involved in different initiative, which also was the same purpose. But yeah, I remember we were also talking about the project back when I was in UK to participate in the Global Environment Network in 2018, and I have tried once to apply to Darwin Initiative, and that was like the basic start of these community seed banks. Now I can say that I'm halfway at least there, and the time at that time, the information which they are providing, why your proposal have not been accepted. One reason was that there was no UK-based partners. So that's still, I think, there, and you cannot go further without. And in terms of risks, I don't know what specific risks you mean here, but I don't see major risks in terms of collaborating with any partners from outside, as we are doing with some other countries, like we do with Andes organization on like potato parks. We do here like the analog wheat park, and we're working with another organization, Cloud Forest Institute here. But there might be at the moment, maybe due to these current settings, some issues, I don't know, might rise. You might also reflect in terms of if the institute from England would be like, see any risk of working or collaborating with partners in the countries like Tajikistan after like these relation between like Russian and the West and all this. Other than this, no administrative or logistic-wise risk I cannot see.
Okay, I just put in the chat Tim Pierce, who's one of the people that we would talk to. And he says, I'm focused on developing the seed conservation programs across Kew's African partners. And it's to deliver Kew's strategic target of securing seeds from 25% of the world's flora by 2020, which passed, by the way, 3 years ago. But I just wanted to raise this because do you want to have Tajik seeds held in the UK? Is there going to be any pushback from people in your country or Omar in Morocco to say, we will collect seed of wild species and we will send them to another country? With all of the concerns about biodiversity conservation and sustainable and equitable use of resources, biological resources, with all of the history of colonialization, which was to go get very good resources, plant and animal resources from the global south, and to bring them back for the wealth of Europe and of the United States. Is it good? Would you accept to work with Kew if one of their objectives is to bring seed from Morocco and seed to Tajikistan to the United Kingdom or to Svalbard or to any other international seed conservation center, which would then allow kind of global access without necessarily Tajik or Moroccan control?
Yeah, let me a bit elaborate on the seed exchange. We have some experience on seed exchange in terms of like collecting and taking to other countries, but mainly the Central Asian and Russian, which participants we have been involving into our mobile learning circle. And there is certain procedures you document, and we did not face any issues like quarantine and all other these papers you deal with. And then our partners got that seeds, and yeah, well, there is some which are protected and are not allowed, but the general is okay. And after that, we also were involved in facilitating the like PAO. We have a Central Asia or like former Soviet Union countries conference on treaty, yeah? FAO treaty on genetic resource.
Exactly.
Mostly not part of the treaty, and which makes it which makes it difficult, like to some extent at the international level to exchange and share seeds. Some restrictions which we have found from partners during this international conference, and we are still there on this purpose, that how we make it possible, like to facilitate further the process together with the FAO treaty headquarters, also support our countries to join these treaties, which is making easier to share these seeds. That's on ongoing process, but yes, there might be an issue in terms of getting like allowed to transfer seeds or share seeds with some of like countries.
What do you think?
Other than this, we are very formally linked to the like seed banks of the government seed banks, which is part of our mobile learning circle and Academy of Agricultural Science, which are part of this. And part of this memorandum is also to facilitate or support the participants in terms of exchanging seeds, yeah? Because when the participants comes, they also bring seeds. That's also an experience. And sometimes the institute representatives takes it, and sometimes they share it with community members, and it's like the process is going on.
Okay, just to thank you, Askarsho. Following what you said, following the ITPGR FA, the FAO treaty, it's forbidden to share those seeds. Only in one case isn't forbidden, if it's for research. But you need to see with the FAO or the local focal points, national local focal points. You need to give a confirmation and the acceptation to send those seeds to an international seed bank or an international approved institution. This is the point. And secondly, we have in Morocco, we have the chance that we have ICARDA in Morocco. And last December, I had a capacity building with them about seed conservation in general and genetic resources. So we have a very good contact with them. If they can, we can. I just had a phone call with the past director, Professor Amri, of ICARDA, and we can do this kind of research nationally if in case of we have a problem to send seeds to a queue to London, Royal Botanic Garden Kew. But as I said, the process is to contact the local focal point, who is in Morocco, Professor Farahi, working with the INRA Institute.
Okay, I have two other questions, but I don't want to take all the time. So if somebody else has a question, I'm willing to cede the floor.
Focus on development the seed conservation program across key African parliamentary queue. Target sequences from.
I have got one question. It's about the. I was thinking these communities you are working with, they historically kept and protected and reproduced these seed varieties. And one question is, why do they need community seed banks now? And the second question is, which was the traditional role of women in this protection and reproduction and seeds, and which is the role of women today in these community seed banks?
Just to answer for the first question, we do have a problem. This is the main problem. Farmers now are not producing their own seeds. Not all of them. Rarely, when you go in one area or one site where we are working, we find only one person who has traditional crops or local varieties, and who is directly who is producing his own seeds. This is as I wrote on the document, this is the main problem and the main challenge we have. So, as I said before, we need to work with local communities a lot, sensibilization, capacity buildings, and they need to see the results of, for example, the yield on those parcels where we are growing those local and traditional varieties. This is the most difficult thing we are facing now, because seeds, local, commercial seeds are everywhere, especially in local souks, and this is a very big problem and the biggest challenge we have to also to supply our community seed banks. So we didn't solve this problem. We are working on it. We are still working on it. If you don't mind, can you remind me your second question?
The second question is about the traditional role of women in keeping these seeds, and which is the role they have today in the community seed banks.
It's dependent on the site, dependent on the tribe, dependent. So that's why we are, if you remember my presentation, that's why we are working also on cultural practices. In some sites, we can find that women are working on one activity in agriculture. Other sites, they are working or involved on other activities. It depends of the local community. It depends of the environmental area. But what we saw since we started that women are not totally involved on agriculture. But we are working with them on it. In Morocco, we found that they are involved, especially on enhancing livelihood, on local cooperatives, on creating new value chains, but still not enough for me, in my opinion. That's why we are working with them and it's our role as NGO to work with them and to accompany them on these points. Thank you.
Yeah, just in addition to Omer, you completely right, Marcus, that there is already a practice of community seed banks, and you cannot attest that that's something new that the NGO bring to the community to teach them how to conserve seeds, because it was there for centuries, and it's a kind of one of the coping strategies to survive in such kind of harsh condition. But in my opinion, and in our work, what we do is just to see where these practices are lacking or are somehow at danger, at risk, and because the globalization is happening too fast, that sometimes farmers do not pace with. Yeah, for example, as we were talking about the improved seeds or the global market entering all these other like areas which have been not accessible before, and if they are not aware about this the nature of this kind of seeds, and then they can easily change, and they come to the conclusion at the end of the day, they come to the point that they lost the one which have been more adapted. And also another aspects, as we said in our goal, is one of the strategy to adaptation to climate change. Yeah, the pace of climate change is happening too fast, that it might happens that they lose like seeds, or the crops does not grow at all. Yeah, in one season, or it does not ripe the seeds. But it's not also the main thing. But as I said, yeah, we do not come and say, okay, you now to save seeds. We see that they save seeds, they have their infrastructure, but due to some circumstances, these are at risk, or that are not more like sustained one, and therefore we improve this infrastructure, one of our role. And we bring other ways of, like, they have their own way of conserving, like as Omer showed some of the facilities which like kind of extending the life of the seeds, not only to 1 year but to several years, and it's make them more like what to call more favorable practices. And sometimes, yeah, there is now this in these mountains, especially these disasters or risks. Yeah, if you just have them in one way, yeah, in one place, and there is big disasters happens, and then it's done for the village. That's why we facilitate the exchange. We try to back up these seeds and all other stuffs. And for the second questions, in terms of women roles, in my experience, in our lesson learned that it's not like only men are involved with seed conservation. It's somehow like divided between them. Like men are more involved in the like, let's say, wheat and stuff like this cultivation, but women they are doing their vegetables growing, so they are more responsible for the seeds of these vegetables, like carrots, stuff like this, tomato or potato, stuff like this. And I can tell from the experience we have seen during our mobile learning that we found farmers at the altitude of 2,000 meters above sea level. More than these people, there are farmers who still growing watermelon or melon, which is very specific, adapted to this condition. But according to the science data, the watermelon does not grow anymore now above the 100 to 1,200 meter above sea level. So this kind of lessons learned, which, yeah, and that was a woman who has been preserving this kind of like seeds. So there is a
Thank
role.
you. Yeah. Thank you, Omar and Ascarsho, for your answer. Valerie has a question. Valerie?
Thank you, Marcos. Hello, everyone. Sorry, my internet has been terrible. So that's why I keep signing in and out. The concept of community seed banks, I first got to hear about it through the GDF program, and I had to read a little bit more about it, and it happens to be very interesting and very, very important in conservation. And I wonder why it's not being practiced well, to the best of my knowledge, in this part of the world. I'm very much interested in it, and my first question is, what actually, what is the criteria that is used? I'm sorry, this might have been addressed already. What is the criteria that is used in identifying the different species or the different seeds to target? That is my first question. And the second one, which might be crazy, is currently we are developing a program, a livelihoods program, where we will be empowering some indigenous communities around a protected area on the cassava value chain. So we have to target communities, but we've identified one where we are going to develop a cassava farm there, to develop or to obtain seeds, which subsequently will be distributed to the two other communities. Does that have anything to do with this whole idea of community seed banks? Thank you.
Thank you, Valerie. For the first question, for the criteria, the first criteria is to focus on local varieties and local crops, because in general they are the most adapted to the area, to the climate change, and generally more resistant to pests. That's the first thing. But on behalf of the seed bank's activities, we are working on several programs, which are one of them is working on fava bean and Pisum sativum selection. So we are doing a small PVS, participatory varietal selection, with other partners in the Mediterranean area. So we are doing selection of those varieties in different countries, Morocco, Portugal, and maybe Spain. Actually, we are doing the selection. We did the first year of selection last year. We started the second year in 2023, and we are waiting for next year to do to have final results, and we will select the most adapted varieties to conserve them on the community seed banks, because we did, like in that stage, we did the selection, and we did the experience, and we found that those varieties X, Y, and Z are adapted to the area. So, but the first criteria is that those seeds must be local, and there is another criteria depending on our other activities. I hope that I answered to your question.
Yes, yes, Omar, thank you.
Yeah, I think that's what, do not repeat what just Omer said, but yeah, that's not we set up criteria as what to put, I mean, in the seed banks, but what do not, because even if we do special for wheat and then next day we go and we see that they favors also some other beans to put there, and there we cannot restrict them. But as I earlier presented, yeah, we do kind of like learning circles. We call it mobile learning circles, bringing together diverse stakeholders, and which are having a look at the seed conservation from different point of views. Like the humanitarian perspective, they say that they have more values for such kind of let's say cereals or beans, which is in all kind of their foods. That's why it's more important for them. Or it's too diverse in terms of wheat varieties. That's why it's important to preserve these diversities. And therefore, we do consult on such kind of findings, but we also leave the choice to the communities that what do they favor, like also to put there and at which conditions. If technically this fits, then we do not restrict any community members. And in terms of, additional activities for livelihoods, that's of course, if you just tell the community members that, oh, preserve seeds, it's important, but then they do not have other means of livelihoods, then they might simply migrate or don't care about such kind of activities, and that's important. And we also include in our activities, for example, this mobile learning circle is now becoming kind of a tour product, and there is too much demands on this that many of the community members established an homestay, because we go to the communities from community to community, and they offer like homestays where we stay, and we do pay, and or the foods traditional, yeah, even if the new modern like cuisines as an influence, but then slowly brings, when they start in the context of slow foods, understanding the importance, they offer it and they also start using it themselves, and it also becomes kind of like, let's say, livelihood source for them. Thank you.
Interesting. Thank you. Okay, we are running out of time, but maybe we have time for a last question. Hugo.
Thank you, Omar and Ascarsho, for a really interesting presentation. I had a question especially for Ascarsho, and could you provide a bit more of detail on how these exchanges of seeds occur? Do you have any type of rules? For example, if someone gets seeds from the seed bank, how much they have to return after the following harvest time? Or do you have any kind of structure, or is it just people go and bring or take seeds? That would be my question. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, that's very interesting. In terms of exchange between community seed banks, like it happens automatically, and as sound in previous questions, it's not like we facilitate the exchange. The exchange of seeds between communities is happening all the time, and but we also put some facilitation there. I'm talking now about in terms of bringing like varieties. I was talking about the learning circles, and that's one of the platform in terms of going from community to communities to see what's there, what we have, and what's like communities in between, or community seedlings in between have, and in what they are interested in. And that's the platform where this exchange happens. And in terms of amount, we have certain certain, like say, settings. We don't set it, but we set only for, we have some rules for emergency cases, the amount that should be always here, like in the seed banks. It's not much, it's just 2 kilo, like the jars, like in the jars which are like for extreme, yeah. But in terms of like amount, how much they are cultivating, what's the amount of the land, how much they want to give to another community, they decide themselves, yeah. But the must one is there just for like not to touch, only like in case if there is
mostly for storage. Then it's mostly for storage.
for storage, yeah. But exchange it different amounts, yeah.
Yeah. Super. Thank you.
And it happens like automatically in between, because they already, like before the season, like during off season, they all start negotiating. So I will take this time from you, these varieties, because last year I tested that one, which is not growing well. So I don't grow these now, I grow another crops. That's kind of, yeah.
So the exchanges are more like one-to-one, so farmer to farmer, more than at the community level, let's say.
It's like farmer to farmers, but also from if there is the ones who do not, we have community seed banks, which like one communities brings together, yeah, all these amounts, and then they take from there, yeah. But there is also still experience to have at their own, like household level. As I said, it's not we just, but it's we bring it just in an amount that everybody has access to, in case. But the learning circle we do, it's exchange like for the ones the other communities are interested also to replicate, or in case they lost it, or I don't know, in case they are interested in new varieties.
Great, thank you.
Mark, do you wanted to say something, or it's already said?
I had a question about seed exchange, but Ascarcho already said the information. So thank you, Ugo, for the question also.
Okay, so if we don't have any other comment or questions, I think
okay, just
Gary?
the last one, very quick. Ascarcho, would you come to Marrakesh in May of 2024 and co-host a panel on community seed banking with Omar?
Oh,
at
sure.
the International Society of Ethnobiology meetings.
If it's an invitation already.
And bring your colleague and other people that are doing community seed banking, maybe somebody from Peru, people involved in biocultural landscape, heritage landscape work. Would you be interested in pursuing that?
Well, sure. If we always happy to share experiences and also learning from, I think, this bigger platform which you are handling like in other part of the world, and I think that would be mutually beneficial.
Okay.
Thank you.
I think somebody of our team, I don't know if it would be Ugo or myself or Nessie, will be in touch, because I think the idea is we're going to start to reach out to people at different universities and institutions to see what they could bring to the International Society of Ethnobiology meetings in May of 2024. And I think a community seed bank workshop, roundtable, excursion into the mountains would be a really, really fantastic thing to put on offer and be very valuable to many of the people participating, of which we're expecting, or we're planning for up to 500 participants. So we hope that it'll be a big event, and we're, what will make a successful event is planning in advance, excellent, very interactive work.
I have a condition, Gary. So we are planning also for our learning circle this year. So if you come to Tajikistan, then we talk about it. So it's
Well,
not sometime.
that is so tempting because, you know, it's been pending for a while. And I loved in your video that in the 60 seconds, 4 seconds were dedicated to people dancing and singing. Because I've never been in an event with people from Tajikistan where there hasn't been dancing and singing.
you will see it's a variety of cultural and
Yeah.
biological experiences.
Yes, it's wonderful. And so many wonderful things to discover. So, okay. It sounds like a pretty good exchange to me. I get to go to Tajikistan, you get to come here. So, but I think it was Marcos who wanted to go to Tajikistan.
Yeah. Anybody's, all are invited. So
Thank you.
Yeah. No, seriously, it is on my mind. I don't do a lot of international traveling anymore, or at least for this period of my life, but Tajikistan would definitely be one of the top of my list.
thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, now we really run out of time. I just wanted to remind you that next week we have a session with Elif. You are all invited. It's going to be about personal profiles and how to activate your story for change. Omar and Ascarsho, thank you very much for sharing your knowledge with us today. And see you, hopefully I see you also next week. Thank you very much.
Thank you for invitation.
Goodbye.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much.